Hello, everybody. This is Josh Beck, and I have here with me Colin Nevins.
Hello, everybody.
We are the founders of Play Particle, and this is our flagship game, Obsidia. And basically what we wanted to do here was just show you guys how a 1v1 game might play out. And we played this game, I think it was a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And we haven't watched the playback yet, but we're just going to kind of do this live here. So right now what we're seeing is just kind of the game setup. I've just deleted the other two classes that aren't being used. So I'm red and Colin is yellow.
Yeah, and we're just getting our initial hands drawn here after we shuffled up. This is all just kind of old hat. We go through the motions pretty quick.
Yeah, and you can kind of see the card. Each card is a unique spell that players can cast throughout the game. So here we are going into the world building phase. This is kind of how you get the board set up in the game, and once the board is set up, then the actual player turns will start.
Right, so I'm drawing first here, and I'm drawing a woods tile and placing it, and then you'll see us kind of lock them to know where it's officially in place. Sometimes we'll bounce around and try a few different orientations to make sure we like our strategy.
Yeah, and I think what I'm going to do for this video is I'm going to edit in some descriptions on what actually the tiles do and how, like, the order of the player turns. So that'll be visible for anyone watching this video. Right now, Colin and I have played this game so many times, we just know everything, obviously.
Sure. These two that have just come out that you're looking at that I'm placing now, these are our towns, which obviously factor heavily into winning criteria, and it's always nice to get a few out there early so you have a little extra to play for.
Yeah, the one that I'm placing right now, this is a home colony, so this is your actual starting point. It looks like I'm kind of thinking about placing it, but I decided not to place it.
Baiting me with it.
Yeah. So the way this world building phase works is you can choose to place your home colony at any point, or you can just continue drawing these kind of communal tiles here, the terrain tiles.
Sure, and sometimes the way the board is setting up, it's advantageous to place early and try to grab good, clean access to a town. But unfortunately, with cards to come after, sometimes you can box yourself in or you can get cut off. So it's always kind of a balance you have to assess.
Exactly. It looks like, so we're out of communal terrain tiles, which means all that's left is to place the home colonies. And Colin, did you have any strategy going into where you put that one?
Yeah, to me, if you see, I often refer to them as steps. I have 2 steps to a town that looked clean, and I've got 3 steps to the other. You know, I didn't want to be encountering many obstacles, especially early, so.
Yeah, it looks like you're kind of explaining your thought process because you used the yellow arrow.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
All right, so now that the initial board is set up, and it's small for a 2-player game, but can be much larger for a 4-player. But as we play, you'll notice that we're building out the board still. So the first phase in any player turn is to grab a new tile. So I'm going to do that, and I have a black water, which is generally a hazard. So you typically want to put a black water near your enemy in some way or to hinder their path.
Yeah, and that's not the thing that I want to see coming out early and being put on my home colony, but it goes to what I was saying about wanting clean pathways off your home colony. It's very difficult without those to start.
Yeah, so that all happened very quickly, but what happened was I trained a new traveler on my home colony, and then I moved 1 space, which is pretty standard for a first turn. You're not going to see a lot of action usually on a first turn. So now we're on to Colin's turn here.
Right, and obviously there being no battles or anything else, a lot of the phases will lengthen out here on the turns as we get deeper. But it looks like I'm just giving myself that last prong off my home colony, giving myself another out here. Well, I want some place to go.
Yeah, so towns, as Colin mentioned before, towns are kind of the name of the game. You want to capture or steal enemy towns. You do have 1 town in your terrain tile stack that will come out through the game, so you want to always be aware of having a place to put that town when it gets drawn.
Exactly, and my turn was also quick, as you saw. Trained a traveler, moved 1 step towards that closest town, getting under town early helps because when you move off a town, you can train a new traveler, and it helps get guys on the board early.
So it looks like I've drawn a portal tile, which is can be a pretty useful tile depending on the board layout and how you use it. It can also be a double-edged sword. It looks like I'm trying to decide, do I want easy access to Colin's side of the board with the caveat that he's going to have access to mine as well. So I'm sort of weighing those options right now.
Sure, yeah, I saw you flirt with putting it on the town. Looks like you might be returning to that, and that's gonna make for a battle-heavy game when we both have access to portals. And we've seen some games go late where portals came into play big. So.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember how this game went. I remember almost nothing from it, but I'm looking now and I see there's 2 towns on the board, so we're definitely going to be trying to seal that one town for each of ourselves and then put ourselves in a position to take the other town. So like you said, battle heavy for sure.
And Josh, it looks like you're doing a few extra things now, getting a creature out there if you want.
So yeah, I did. I summoned a trained lion, which is one of the creatures in this game. So each class has 2 creature cards, and we got a battle going. Want to talk about the battle?
Right. Yes, that all happened quickly. I didn't remember this line either, but you might have seen us roll. A couple of 3s came out, and when you're sharing a tile, draws need to be re-rolled until there's a victor. So we rolled again, and I defeated the lion, and so Josh went ahead and discarded it right away.
Yeah, and the trained lion is the one unique creature in this game because it does not attack its own summoning class, whereas all of the other creatures do attack the summoning class. So when you cast the other creatures, you want to be careful you don't put them near yourself. But the lion, it's kind of a weaker, I would say it's a weaker creature, but does have that advantage.
Right. And so, that was kind of an early lucky roll for me. Helped out a lot. You can see now that let me get onto a town this turn and then move out to challenge Josh, who is on what we call a boneyard here, a boneyard tile, which gives him an advantage in dice rolling where he can't roll a 1.
What are you playing here?
I'm just trying to figure that out. I wish I'd zoomed in on it. A Blood Oath.
Oh, there it is.
And that's just going to eliminate all travelers in the battle. So it was a bit of a kamikaze mission there, but being on a town and Josh not, thought that would give me an advantage.
Yeah, and you knew that I had that boneyard advantage, so you just wanted to get my traveler off of there and not able to get into the town, so it was a successful play.
And then you got a little stuck here.
Yeah, so I got caught in the old not having a place to put your town when it comes out. So I ended up floating it out there, which is a valid play. And obviously the goal would be to build out to it eventually. Or if you'll actually notice in my hand, you can see that I have the torch, which I knew that I had that. So I knew that I would be able to jump through the darkness of those tiles and to the other town.
Sure. This is very interesting now, being able to watch and see your hand.
Yeah, I haven't really, right now I haven't, as we've been doing this, I haven't been looking at my hand, but now I'm kind of going back and trying to put myself in that headspace.
Sure. And all of these, as you can see on the cards, there's numerals, so everything, when it's applicable to be played in a phase, it'll have Roman numerals. So Josh is playing certain cards in certain orders because they correspond to phases.
Yeah, so what just happened there was kind of a rookie mistake. I thought I was going to play the Rain of Fire on Colin's Traveler that's on the town, and I forgot that that card is not valid on Traveler towns, or town Travelers. Yeah,
there are very few spells, I believe, that we let affect Travelers once they're in a town, so it's really... that's why it's so valuable to get in there. Really, you have to be battled off usually. You're not really susceptible to spells.
Right, and that's kind of a design choice when I was making this game. I really wanted you to feel more safe once you got to a town. Otherwise, there would be a lot of sort of last minute getting your enemy off the town and then complete upsets. And it felt, there was a phase of the game early on where there was a lot of that going on, and it just didn't feel right. And I wanted to give people the chance to feel like they earned that town and they held it till the end of the game.
Yeah, and the game has really struck a nice balance of feeling like the skill and the cards you play and your strategy can really be expressed. As you see here now, I moved out to challenge Josh, outmanned, and he has a dice rolling advantage again from that boneyard, but it doesn't really matter for me right now. I'm just trying to put some pressure on him, trying to take a town.
You're already on your town, so basically
Right.
you're just trying to hinder me and slow me down from getting my town.
Exactly.
And it looks like we drew. We both rolled 3s, and on a battle where travelers are not on the same tile, draws are allowed. Battles that take place on the same tile must end in the death of one of those travelers or groups.
Mm-hmm. Right. So that's an average outcome for us. It does mean that Josh is going to survive and most likely be able to move on to that town.
Unless you have some spells up your sleeve.
Right, which I actually haven't studied much in my hand yet either, trying to remember my strategy, but when we flip back, I'll take stock of my my library there.
Yeah, so I'm looking at my hand right now, and it looks like I have a compass, and so I'm guessing I'm hanging on to that because the compass helps you get through woods, and there is a woods right next to one of Colin's towns.
So it looks like now the Rain of Fire's coming out. I knew Josh had it, like he said, because he tried to bring it out earlier, and I had to roll for survival. So as soon as Josh plays that and declares who it's on, I immediately roll before Josh continues. And you can see I rolled a 5, which you need a 5 or a 6 to survive that.
Yeah, so ultimately I failed with that attack, but it's a good card. I like that card.
So you can see in my hand now that I'm looking, I have a Melancholia, which is used with a Void, which I just pulled. So it looks like the Void, I'm trying to figure out, do I stuff Josh coming off his home colony, which I considered, but then I decided I'm going to put it on this town. Melancholia is one of the few cards that I believe will pull you off of a town.
Mm-hmm. There's a couple.
So I know how powerful, yeah. And when you play this game a lot, you will start to know some of the strategies and abilities of the deck. I don't know that Josh has a torch, but I have my suspicions, I think, at this point, that you could get to that other town, so I wanted some insurance.
I think that's one of the things I like most about this game is that when you first play it, you have no idea what your enemy's cards are. You have no idea what your own cards are, for that matter, when you're first playing this game. And so there is that element of surprise and everything until you really start to play the game and get to know it, and then the strategy becomes more prevalent as you get better at the game.
Yeah, really, and a lot of cards we found work beautifully in tandem, or sometimes, as we like to refer to them, as little symphonies. When you string 3 or 4 spells together in a hand, you can have a devastating turn because they're very complementary.
Exactly.
So, looks like we're rolling, you're battling my creature. I summoned a witch to that boneyard. And it looked like a kill, and then you draw. It looked like, so we stopped that, and you survived on town. Now we're progressing to the other battle. And Witch cannot roll a 1. That's part of her power, so I re-rolled mine, and Josh kept his die. He does not re-roll.
I remember this. I think I draw on both of those, and then I killed you here?
That could very well be it, because then
I think that's what happened.
Because then I had to fight my witch as well, right? And there he goes.
Got you.
Yeah. So to Josh's point in the beginning about being careful with your creatures, the witch remains, and now Josh will have to fight again next turn. But it did end up backfiring a bit, and it looks like I'm going to finish with a spell that does not allow Josh to play any of his own.
Yeah. So that spell stops me from playing spells, which was very devastating to me because I think I had a plan here that got disrupted. I can't remember exactly what it was.
Well, you can't play your torch and get away from the witch.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I was going to jump over to that town.
Yeah.
I think what I end up doing is I end up moving my traveler onto the boneyard, I believe, so that we both get the bonus.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see in a second here.
But yeah, there's a lot of things at play, and you can see a pretty even start here. Josh has a second town kind of in his back pocket, but can't get there quite yet. And so that's why there's a lot of action in the middle of the board here, as we're both trying to leverage for position.
Yeah, so I did move on to that boneyard. I'm just teaming up on this witch here. Witches can be tricky because, again, they don't roll 1s, and these dice are they're 6-sided dice, but they're 1 through 3 twice. So it's only 1s, 2s, and 3s.
And a note here that when you must do all shared tile battling first. So we're starting with Josh's 2 travelers on the same tile as the witch, but and you can see the witch is killed there. But if the witch was not killed, Josh would then direct which battle he wanted next, his town possessing traveler or the other. So when it's your turn and the battles are taking place during your turn, you dictate
the order
you'd like to see them. Yes. So
yeah.
So sometimes you'll see us using the arrow, the tab, just to signify to each other to where we want to be battling, just for clarity.
Yeah, so it's back to Colin's turn, which means that Mystical Shroud goes away, so that opens it up for me to be able to cast spells. There are some spells, so any spells that have a they, like Colin mentioned before, the Roman numerals 1 through 5, but there is a 0 or an O for open, I guess is kind of what we settled on.
Mm-hmm.
These open spells can be played during enemy turns and during other certain phases that aren't necessarily labeled as one or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we found and there's a balance, you need to be able to play spells kind of consistently throughout. We find the strongest games are when you're sort of running out of spells to cast as the game concludes. It's always frustrating to be left with a full spell deck when the game ends.
Yeah, I think generally it's pretty good. You generally are your deck depletes by the time the game's over, or there's a couple left usually.
So I'm definitely starting to think here. That was that little pause. I have a lot of guys to move. You can see I elected to go into a woods to challenge Josh. I portaled to challenge him further. And I played a Temple Runes, which lets me move my home colony to a portal. So you saw I just moved and doubled up. And now I'm just trying to get behind his lines and get just another point of ingress and make him divert his resources. So... because again, now he's starting to look like he's going to overrun me in my mind. So
yeah, so you've got 6 travelers on the board to my 4, so I'm definitely feeling the pressure here over near my home colony in my town.
And there it is. You played a card. For that exact reason.
I did. Yeah. What was that? Was that a
It's a flaming
spear. So I was able to take out one of Colin's travelers right off the bat before the battle even begins. And it looks like you won that roll.
Oh, I think that was a draw.
Okay.
Yeah, that too was just sitting there.
You zoom out so far on your when you play.
I do.
So funny.
I like the 30,000-foot view of the table.
The bird's eye. Yeah.
Yeah. But I did lose that roll in the woods too. So it's one town to one town, but now our travelers on the board are equal, and I feel a little exposed because Josh will get the next turn and can move to challenge for a town. So. It does get very difficult trying to anticipate moves a few turns out.
Yeah, so here I am in my tile phase. I drew another void. I think I'm just trying to find a place to put it on Colin's side of the board, but nothing really seemed to stick out. I probably put it there to block you from being able to put a town there.
Sure, which is good because mine hadn't come and I had a traveler one step away. So
yeah. So there was that torch
that
I had been trying to play the entire time but couldn't. So now I'm on 2 towns, so I'm technically winning this game at this point.
And coming from my 1. So this is a big swing in momentum.
Yeah. And there's going to be, looks like a couple of battles here. And there are battle spells, and specifically the class that I'm playing as, the Warlords, they are battle heavy, so I should have a bunch of battle spells coming up as I draw more cards from my deck.
And you can see Josh elected to do the 2 versus 1 with my town at risk battle first, and he did end up, his numbers helped, winning the second roll. So now it's 2-0, and I'm starting to feel it slip a little bit here on me.
Right, because if I get a good roll through that woods, which actually I don't need to roll out of that woods because I have the compass spell, I should be able to get right into Colin's open town there.
Mm-hmm. So Josh pointing out now that this discards Temple Ruins. A lot of cards will tell you when to get rid of them, and that one was at the start of your next turn. Here's my town. Josh's Void was perfectly placed and timed last turn.
Yeah.
So now I've got to put it a little further away, and more importantly, kind of just off a portal, which I don't like because it's going to mean Josh can eventually get there.
Yeah, luckily you still are only 2 spaces away.
And luckily I had that Melancholia, so you see me now in my tile phase 1, playing that and pulling Josh off that town, so I'm breathing a little easier.
Forgot about that. So he basically rendered that torch move useless there.
Mm-hmm. And now a water vortex, which is going to suck in, you see, all non-town travelers. That's why he only had one guy go in there.
Yeah, so my nearby traveler went into the water, and now I need to roll for survival, which I played. Did I play the survival instinct?
Looks like it. Yeah, I just highlighted it. Yeah.
So I'm able to roll an extra die here, which helps me survive. So I do live, but I don't know if that was good or bad because I'm now in a different tile.
And you can see me playing a lot of cards now, and it looks like I'm playing a sea serpent into black water, my second creature and my last. And a lot of cards got played because I really needed to stymie Josh's momentum here and get to this second town. And this is good because it's going to kind of flush some stuff out of my hand, and I'll get a full redraw.
And so the Sea Serpent's special ability is that it wins all same tile battles, so there was no battle there. I automatically lose that one since I was on the tile of the Serpent.
And now he'll battle again from town, and this time we'll roll like regular, and it looks like much to my happiness here.
Yeah.
I roll a 3 to Josh's 1, and boy, did I need that.
Wow,
I'm starting to remember.
Yeah, so this game is completely even now. No one has any towns, and all the towns are on the board too.
And it just goes back to saying we've put in a lot of hours test playing, rebalancing decks, rewriting spells to make sure that, it really did come down to your skill and strategy. And as you can see, big momentum shift back in my favor with the use of those spells. So
right. I also wanted to highlight that every time you play, obviously the board is different, and the starting tiles are even somewhat random depending on how many players. So in this particular game, we started out with 2 towns, but in other games there may only be 1 town, there may be 3, 4 towns, so every game you play is just a completely different strategy.
And I see you use your compass, so Josh moved out of the woods where you normally have to roll, so it can be a bit unreliable, but one of his spells lets him just choose his direction, and he smartly uses it to get onto a town.
Yeah, so now I'm right just like that, right back onto 2 towns, although I do need to survive 2 battles in order to hold those towns.
So, looks like a draw, and then Josh will elect, he picked the order here, so he chose which to fight first. Looks like my Serpent draws again, he's hanging in there.
I think I lose this one. I just used the Hero's Axe. And then you used... okay, I remember this.
So this, it gets a bit complicated, Josh using a battle spell.
Yeah, so the Hero's Axe, for same tile battles, it allows me to roll 2 dice. But what Colin's card does is allows him to add another Traveler, right?
Yeah, it lets me immediately put a Traveler on the board in the same tile as Josh, and it therefore forces that battle to occur first. So I'm trying to neutralize his advantage of playing a battle spell. Now I'm going to force him to roll first on the town. And my card, the Ancient Conjuring, my Traveler disappears at the end of the turn no matter what. So this is really just a one-shot deal to try and upset him with the attack here.
Yeah. And I think your upset works because I don't remember staying on that town for longer than a turn.
And one of the things Josh and I are talking about here at length is, we talk about initiative with the spells. So it's Josh's turn, so he gets the first spell to play, and he played his axe. I played mine in response, and we were just discussing that the effects of his Hero's Axe now apply to the first battle take place. So we were just working through some of the rules, just talking out loud there.
Yeah, sometimes there's little rules here and there that they're written down in the rule book, but they're maybe not always clear initially, and sometimes I have to go back and check how I decided to resolve those issues.
But they are, now we are pretty confident the rule book is pretty self-explanatory, and if you ever had any disagreements, you should be able to refer there and get a pretty clear answer. So Josh and I did come to an agreement about how the rule was going to work. Moved on to the next battle, and you can see then I used an attack card, and Josh used something called an echo tactic, which means he's going to take my attack card now.
So Colin did still get to use his card, but once instead of discarding it, it went into my deck. So I'll be able to pull that on my at the end of that turn, I guess.
Exactly. Man, that one was a mouthful, that turn.
So yeah, it looks like I'm on one town. Colin is within earshot of 2 towns, so he'll shortly be able to enter those.
And now I'm trying to figure out yet another portal, and Josh and I each have pretty quick access to a portal from our home colonies, so I'm really debating where do I want to give us both a shot. And you can see I'm considering this town on the outside that nobody's been back to.
Actually, I also wanted to talk a little bit about that ice field. I think we skipped over that, but you played a beautifully placed ice field right next to my town, which means that I'm not able to actually go onto that ice field and get to my town because of the nature of ice fields, where you slide through to the next off the edge of the tile. So I just wanted to call that out because I think we were talking over that when it happened.
Yeah, and that certainly comes with all those hours of playing, me understanding the advantage of the terrain tile, and they really all do. All the special terrain tiles have their advantages, and you can really help yourself by placing them well, and that's basically what's keeping Josh from getting back there, because he cannot stop and turn 90 degrees on that tile. He would skate on through, and then that traveler would be lost.
Yeah, so I tried to, when I was creating the terrain tiles and deciding on which ones should go into the game, I tried to make everything unique and have a different advantage. And I really like the ice field because it can be used defensively or offensively in that way.
And one of the other classes that we deleted that we didn't choose to play with does have a creature that summons there, so it's really a very versatile tile.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like we're settling the serpent, which Josh finally manages to vanquish and takes away my kind of continuous threat on his town. So things are tightening back up. Looks 1-1 again. So
I'm looking at your cards here. You've got an apprentice, which allows you to get an extra traveler.
I have that spineless. Spineless, one of my favorite cards.
That is such a unique card. I don't remember if you actually got to play it. Maybe. We'll see.
I think I will, but...
Okay, so explosives. I got to destroy a tile, so I took out that ice field that we were just talking about to give myself an in into that town.
And the explosives has to be played on an unoccupied tile, so obviously nobody was occupying it, but really that, to Josh's point, was a great play because that ice field was helping me tremendously.
Yeah, so I should be able to get onto that town just as long as I can survive the black water. But do I move on it? Let's see what I do here. I'm really thinking about what my play is here.
Yeah, because he plays a second wind here, so he's going to give all of his travelers an extra step. So you can see he moved onto the black water, and then he immediately did his survival roll for it, and having survived, I believe you're going to then take your second step.
Right. Or no, I think what happens is if you do a survival roll, you're actually too exhausted. In the logic of the game, your traveler is too exhausted to continue on.
Okay.
So actually, I think this second wind was a not great play because I only got to use it for that one traveler that I just moved there.
Sure.
But I did get 2 onto a boneyard, so I should be able to take you out in this battle.
Right. Now Josh again has an advantage because the tile he's on with the boneyard, and a numbers advantage.
Yeah, and I have to re-roll my 1s because you cannot roll a 1. Oh, all right. It was a draw.
Yeah, so because we drew on the first battle, the whole battle ends. Josh doesn't roll again or anything because he has a second guy. As soon as a draw occurs, the whole battle is settled, barring any spells that you can still play.
Each battle is made up of multiple skirmishes if it's a group battle. So, yeah, like Colin said, the first skirmish was a draw, which meant that the entire battle was a draw.
Right. So, again, I just keep coming back to how balanced the decks are and how enjoyable the game is because you can select any class at any time and, you're going to have a really strong deck to play with. So,
Yeah, and I don't think we even talked about that there are 4 classes in this game. In Obsidia, the game, there are 4 classes, and each class has a unique spell deck of 20 cards. So there's no repeat cards, and each class has its own strategy for gameplay.
So you can see I'm playing that apprentice Josh talked about, which lets me train an extra traveler to stay behind on my town. So instead of the normal 1, I'm placing 2. Just another way to bolster your numbers and get some travelers on the board. And right now, being kind of deadlocked at a town apiece, or I suppose I have 2 now, but it's really important to get some numbers on there and have some guys to play with.
Yeah, I was just about to say you had almost all of your travelers on the board, but then you just lost 1. So I'm trying to even this up here.
Yeah,
but it is interesting. This game is not about the amount of travelers you have on the board. It's really about the town. So you could easily be able to fortify your towns with 1 or 2 travelers and not necessarily have a bunch on the board to win this game.
Exactly, and I think there are a lot of games where as it gets late, you'll see us sort of fortify the towns we do possess more, especially if we're in a leading position, because rarely when the game is tight do you want to leave just a single traveler on protecting a town. There's just so much your opponent can still do.
Right, and if you're already in a winning position, you don't want to make yourself vulnerable. It's sometimes the best strategy is just to wait it out and keep your towns.
Yeah, absolutely. But this is shaped up to be a great game just because there's sort of 2 towns that Josh clearly has access to and control of. There's 2 that I do, although this one, you see a battle is about to happen, has certainly been contested and has changed hands a few times.
Yeah, it looks like, so this town, the second town of yours, is the most contentious town here, I think.
Yeah, and I'm certainly uncomfortable. If the town that's seen the most action is my second, and Josh already has 2, not only do I need to keep it to draw, but I need to find a way to access 1 more of his. So looks like that some of that rolling went my way, which was lucky. And Josh, you want to explain what you're doing here?
Yeah, I'm playing an interesting card. It's the Forced Trade, which allows me to take any spell from my hand and give it to Colin in exchange for a random card drawn from his hand. So I'm giving him Eternal Flame, which I don't think is a usable card on this particular board.
Mm-hmm.
So I got your Thievery, which is pretty good. I like Thievery.
It's funny. Thievery serves almost the same purpose. So Thievery lets him straight steal a card from my hand without having to trade for it. But
right. Yeah. Usually Thievery is great, but I guess I would have wanted something more direct rather than to have to steal again later.
And I'm looking at my hand now, and honestly, Josh took arguably one of the best things in my hand. I'll say one of the most relevant things to this game in my hand. There are things I didn't want him to take. That was probably middle of the road.
Right.
But it's never a good feeling to have somebody go into your spells and take something at random. Sometimes games really have changed momentum on that card, So you saw me place a Boneyard on my own town. I did that again to not leave an open road out of town where Josh could put something more detrimental. So sometimes you need to protect the towns you own by placing tiles that are advantageous or at worst neutral. And knowing that the Boneyard is not going to hurt me, I put it there.
Yeah, and Boneyards can actually hurt depending on who you're playing against. Like certain classes can cast creatures onto Boneyards, but Colin knows my deck pretty well and knows that I can't really utilize that Boneyard.
Right, and I mean my class summons onto the Boneyards, and that card has already come and gone. So, but you can see again, it's all kind of happening right in the middle of the board here. It seems to be the epicenter of all the conflict. I'm just working hard.
Yeah, so this is gonna be another Boneyard battle. So, the die.
Yeah,
this wouldn't happen in real life, but in Tabletop Simulator, anything's possible.
I know. Sometimes when we get that weird land, we just laugh it off and re-roll. But
yeah, so that was a draw for that battle. So we're going to do the 2 versus 1. I still have the Boneyard advantage here, so we'll see how this plays out. And I'm not playing a lot of battle spells, I'm noticing. I don't have them in my hand necessarily.
Yeah, and I'm not aware of how many...
Wait. Oh. Did I speak too soon? What was that?
Must have been a war crime because we drew.
Oh yeah, we drew. So the war crime allowed me to actually win a draw.
So one of the cards that I said before that, a draw sort of ends the whole battle, but I was very specifically thinking of War Crime, which in the event of a draw lets the caster win the whole thing. So you saw Josh clear 2 of my Travelers, even though I managed a draw there, which is pretty devastating at this stage. So well played.
Yeah, and it looks like, as you can see, the board is getting pretty big, which means the game is probably coming to an end. It looks like we each have maybe 1 or 2 turns left, and the turn count is decided by the amount of terrain tiles you have in your stack. So once all of Obsidia is quote-unquote explored and all of the tiles have been drawn, the players will finish their final turns, and then the game will be decided by who has the most towns.
Right, and being now that we've seen both Josh's town, I'm referring to the one that was in his deck, and mine come out, we know that 4 towns is all we're going to get. So we know we're pretty deadlocked at 2 apiece here, and it's going to be, I don't think this was forced overtime, but should the last turn be taken and the towns are tied, you enter an immediate sudden death, and the first person to either gain or lose a town, it would decide the game at that point.
Right, and it is more likely in this situation since it's an even number of towns that we both have access to, so there's a good chance it could go into overtime, although...
Yeah, I'm wondering about your move right here. You moved off a town and didn't recruit.
Yeah, so that was an interesting play. I think I looked at the amount of turns I had left, and I decided that I would be able to get back to that town, and I just really wanted to make sure Colin didn't win this battle, and I have all of my Travelers on the board, which meant that I could not recruit onto that town.
Right. So it was a bold move, and but well played. I mean, if Josh deemed it was worth putting a bunch of people at the tip of the spear and trying to get me off a town because he had one in his back pocket, that can work. There's my thievery.
The spineless. Yeah, so I took your spineless?
So you took it at random.
Yeah.
So let's see. I have one of my best cards, the Cursed Initiation, in my hand, finally, which is what I've been looking for. And I just saw the turn counter. I had 2 tiles, so here's me flipping. I have 2 turns to go, and I do have 2 towns to technically Josh's 1, but I know I'm in a bit of a spot of trouble here. So I'm probably going to have to start throwing everything at the wall and try to disrupt his plans for the last turns.
Yeah, I think me bringing out all of my Travelers was sort of the signifier that I'm trying to put everything I have into this to kind of win this. And it looks like I'll be able to move back onto my town pretty easily, assuming there's no foul play with spell casting.
And I immediately foul play with a betrayal.
Yeah, that was a great play, actually.
So betrayal kills everybody in the group except for one person, the betrayer. So you saw Josh clear everybody but one off of his boneyard tile.
So now I'm a little exposed here. I'm still on the boneyard.
And then I'm playing a possession, which lets me dictate any single Traveler of Josh's to fight every adjacent friendly Traveler of his.
Yeah, so he's basically forcing me to fight myself here.
And Josh is doing survival rolls for that. It's 4 or better to survive. So that's why you don't see me rolling.
Yeah.
Josh just told me he's going to roll for these 3 Travelers. He rolled 3 times in a row for the sake of speed, and then we removed. Looked like just one person was killed in those rolls.
Right. So I'm curious to see how the battle will play out, because we still need to battle here.
Right. I'm wondering when my Curse Initiation is going to come out, because technically I'm still in training phase. You see me training my home colony right now, and you can look in my hand and see Curse Initiation has a 2 on it. That's training phase.
You must play it right now.
I'm wondering, but I only have 1 Traveler in reserve. So the card says I can take up to 3 from my reserve, so I could play it, but it's not that advantageous yet. And I think I was saving my...
You wanted to wait until...
Final Traveler.
You can utilize the full aspect of the card.
Right. And I deemed it more important to move out and challenge you and try to keep my town, and I needed a guy to replace there, a traveler to replace.
So I'm probably sweating bullets here. Oh, actually, no. Well, I might have been sweating bullets, but then I used the spineless, which was actually perfect, right? Because that allowed me to get a free movement onto the town. So I solved my problem with that beautifully stolen spineless.
Yeah, another really unique card, and it's always a kick in the to have somebody steal a card from your hand and then use it in a brilliant way against you. So that's how Josh managed to move back and cover his town during my turn. Although he did lose that battle, which was very vital.
Oh, yeah.
And now he played that spineless, but he moved off the boneyard, and he still has to fight me, and I have the advantage, and he loses it.
Right, that's a very good point. So it might not have even been the best play, depending on how this shakes out here, but
right.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah, you see me re-rolling the ones, that's from the tile advantage, and there it is.
I
got the win.
In the end, it was all for naught.
which happens, but I don't know that I would have been doing anything different than you did. And, we've chatted a lot about all the elements of the game, so maybe we didn't dictate everything that was happening, but you can see I also had managed to sneak my way over on a portal to challenge that back town, which we're fighting for right now.
Yeah, so a lot of battles are happening right now, and none of them are going in my favor, so you can see how quickly this has turned around. Luckily, I got a draw there on that last battle, so I held on to my town, but I'm down significantly in the traveler count here. So this is my final turn here.
Yeah, and he as you saw, Josh had nearly all of his travelers, or all of them, on the board, but a couple of well-timed spells and some tile advantages and placement really aided me. So you're never really out of it. I wouldn't put it past Josh to mount a comeback here.
So I'm looking at my hand. I have the Foreign Allegiance, which is a huge spell. This is the only thing that can save me here. I'm pretty much dead in the water otherwise, because I can't get to my second town, and Colin has 2 towns, so I need to get onto my town. So I do play the Foreign Allegiance, which allows me to replace one of Colin's travelers with one of my own from my reserve. So I'm just deciding which traveler to steal. I think it will become obvious after I just kind of talk it through. Yeah,
I would suspect either my portal challenger or the boneyard, but I don't know, you might be slow to the boneyard because you just moved off that and lost a town. So.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I do the boneyard because that gives me a direct route to the town, which is really what I need, and it gives me the boneyard advantage. I think my hesitation here was that, can I survive 2 battles, which is what's going to happen right now. You still have a turn, right?
Yeah, and coming down to the end, again, the win criteria is control of the most towns when the last turn is taken. And I have 2, and Josh owns 1. So he is really concerned about what he's doing right now, this move to get onto a second town.
Yeah. So you can see I just cast my Swamp Dragon, which is normally a huge creature card, but I wasn't able to use it, but I just kind of threw it out there. So now I'm just kind of moving my travelers into place on my final turn, and I'm just going to hope that these battles shake in my favor. And that one did, which was huge for me.
That was big.
And down to Colin's final turn. So if he can take me off of a town or get onto one of my towns, that will seal the win for him. But if nothing happens, if no towns exchange possession, then it'll go into overtime.
And my early suspicion is still having that curse. There it is. Initiation, I'm going to play that. I can get up to 3 guys, and that lets me summon them onto Josh's home colony. But I only had 2 in my reserve, so I can only take what I've got.
And I remember that card kind of throwing me off. I forgot that you hadn't played it yet. So that I'm pretty much freaked out at this point.
And so all that's important to me is to put the most pressure on his most vulnerable town. So I'm portaling 2 guys to have a shot at his town back there, although it's kind of a long shot having to win 2 battles.
Right.
And then I'm putting all the pressure on taking this boneyard, which is really where I expect I'm going to win, truthfully.
So, and right now, Colin is rolling for a woods exit, and he gets a 2, which is exactly what he wanted. So now he has 2 travelers in a group on the boneyard to attack my town.
And the tile has markings to tell you, corresponding to the die roll, which way you go, and maybe they're a little tiny from this angle, but
yeah, they're little stones depicted in the art.
Yeah.
Okay, so first battle there, I lost. Not a great start. I think we're doing this in kind of the order of least importance to most importance.
Well, in same tile, we're sharing.
Yeah.
So although I want to attack Josh's town, we have to resolve these first. So he beats me both times there.
So this is it. The final battle here that is the most important one. If I lose this, we drew, right?
Well,
we didn't draw.
Yeah.
You had the boneyard advantage, so I lost it just like that. So that's it. Game's over. And I paused it here, and I've circled the towns. So you can see Colin's 2 towns to my 1 town. And that's it. That's how you play Obsidia.
It's a good game.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
It's very competitive.
This is specifically, I wanted to show a 1 versus 1 game. So a lot of other games out there, they can't scale necessarily to 2 players. It kind of gets, the rules kind of change and you lose some of the point of the strategy. But with this game, it really does scale very well to 2 players.
I think so. And every time you're going to get a new game board during the world building, that will present unique challenges and pathways. And there are other classes with other abilities we didn't show here, but are just as strong and just as unique. So.
Yeah, and I just wanted to thank you guys for watching, anyone who actually did watch this, and I hope you guys are excited about the game.
Yeah, well, and just check out the rest of the page for all the other information you would need playing, and thanks for checking us out.
Yep, thanks guys.
Bye.